So we examine the reality of sun energy, establishing terrors on Earth. Or more simply, University Knows is trying to ignite our planet on fire every day at the National Ignition Facility and more, killing every life on Earth when their theory is proven wrong. Their claim is this 10 million degree Fahrenheit fire will just extinguish itself. Not enough gravity here. Yet the sun continues to burn, and wrong, even a little bit, is death for all life on this planet. Number 1. No evidence exists to support the claim of fusion. It's just two hydrogen atoms combining into helium as the means of heat generation on the sun. Where is all the helium produced? Their math is for every 2 hydrogen atoms lost, there will be a helium atom created. Thousands of years and more prove no such helium exists. Neither has their experimentation here on Earth produced anything but affirmation. This fantasy is nothing more than lies. The only chemical signature from the sun is an ash cloud from the fire. You cannot see through that fire, and no instrument of any kind can reveal what is behind a 10 million degree fire. Rather, the result of the fire is hydrogen, because the burning of atomic bonds would release the simplest possible atomic creations, which is hydrogen and much less helium, as is the fact. 2. No evidence exists to support the claim of extreme density beyond any known element. No evidence to support size other than the actual fire. No evidence the sun is made of hydrogen other than an ash cloud. No evidence of fire that exists from the core outward, nor any consolidated theory of gravity. You have less than that. As is necessary to consider or conceive of a claim, we can gamble with this entire planet and every living thing because we know they do not know. A fire that will consume this Earth unless their theory, not enough gravity here to sustain the fire so it will extinguish itself, proves correct, rather than the reality burning this entire planet because everything here is fuel so it will not extinguish itself. 3. No evidence exists to prove this so-called fusion fire or any other name will simply extinguish itself, or that it will not continue to ignite across our entire planet, just like the sun. There's no putting out a 10 million degree fire, therefore no second chances. Ignition is either the end of this world or the elimination of an extreme amount of jobs. Evidence does exist to prove by the laws of our physical world the following realities exist instead. 4. By the evidence of history data as a proven source established in constant temperatures from the sun over thousands of years is a proven fact. This demands nothing less than a very stable relationship between the fire on the sun and its fuel source does exist. That's clearly true. That is not possible with the core, this entire sun on fire. A core fire means all the fuel must be critically involved. There is no new fuel to burn. It is all on fire. Simply physics is as proven fact. Like a house on fire, when all the fuel is engulfed by fire on the inside, everything collapses and dissolves into ash in a short time, disproving core fire theory. Thereby, if the fire begins by involving all the fuel that exists, where every part of the sun itself is sustained on fire, as is the essence of core fire, then from the inside the heat will expand the sun to its maximum limit quickly. A physical law of pressures and temperatures. The sun will then extinguish itself in a very short time because the fuel will run out, which does mean, by proven fact, with no fuel, no increase in energy is possible. Therefore, no supernova event can exist from or in a star. 5. By the evidence, the fire on the sun is driven by atomic fuels, not fusion. It is a 10 million degree Fahrenheit fire. Nothing else can achieve this energy release. It's a physical law. Stability does not include theory, as is a series of explosions inside or outside. That would be that with an entire sun engulfed from the core outward would cause the entire mass to explode, wobble, shape change, or appear with crevices, canyons, mountains, and such. It is a simple volcanic reality. If you claim the gravity pulls it back together, then prove by physical law how that does exist. There's no evidence of any sort or kind or series of individual events noted throughout all of history that can be labeled as continuous explosions or changes in the sun, as that is not stable. This is fire. Everything on Earth demands fire, and explosives are different. Where are your facts? Math is not enough to gamble our world. Math predicts where you measure or point the equation to go. It is not truth. It is measurement based upon your decisions, your direction, or the purpose you propose. Therefore, a fantasy looks real too, because you can make the math fit it by choosing a direction or a distance in time to travel in time. Truth identifies itself by consequences. That definition then becomes reality assembled by participation, if no excuses, lies, or assumptions are made. By their math used to calculate it's safe to bring the same fire here as on the sun, Their assertion by that math is all the mass of this universe came out of a tiny hole, smaller than an atom or a ping pong ball or whatever. Thereby, no Big Bang could have existed, because for that mass just to exist, to exit that little hole, it would take many trillions and trillions and trillions of years. Where was all the mass stored, other than their imagination, their fantasy land? The assumptions of density far greater than a black hole, by trillions of times, is a lie. It doesn't exist. 6. By the evidence, the law is heat causes expansion of pressures inside the container of the core. Extreme temperature and pressure will continue to rise until an explosion destroys the whole, or not less than a large part. No evidence exists mass is being pushed back into a tiny hole, as is their fantasy creation without a shred of evidence anywhere in this universe. Reality asserts one tiny spot or deviation of less gravity in a pressure vessel, and the result is deformation. That would be visible. The sun is proven stable across the whole, across time. Their assumption of core density is far beyond what any physical law will allow, unless they claim it is an extreme black hole. If it's a black hole, it's black because no light is allowed to exit. If it is not a black hole, then there is no possibility that the energies released by a 10 million degree fire can be considered dense. Heat needs room. Flames first are said to extend 12 million miles from the surface of the fire of the sun. Thermodynamic laws demand space because heat expands. These plumes identify a freedom from the gravity so that they cannot extend in long, thin lines. Fire is different than heat. They are not the same. Likewise, fire and explosions are separate entities and do not occupy the same space, although they have a similar signature in some ways. The claim that the sun is the densest object in our solar system and is made of hydrogen is a fool's lie. The lightest known element in our solar system cannot occupy the same space as their claim of heaviest, most dense elements. Their refusal to accept that reality further denies all facts known about element composition, the physical laws we rely upon as Earth. Or the laws of physics themselves have been replaced with fantasies to pretend they know what gravity is. 7. By the evidence, an exploding supernova star proves the core of the sun cannot be on fire, because it expands massively, a result of heat on its last days, and that expansion requires new fuel to be added. It is a proven fact. This is the opposite of a core on fire, and refuses the assumption that elements of greater density will arrive last into that core fire, even if they are or are not on fire. Reality proves the densest materials are heaviest, thereby, as in gold panning, these elements will go first into the core. Gravity pulls them harder is a proven fact. Theory demands, according to laws governing physics, that just like a candle fire that rises above its fuel source due to thermodynamic expansion, a fact, the fire on the sun rises above its heat source. Because it is a sphere, it rises even more, a fact. A 10 million degree flame needs a lot of room, a fact. Therefore, what is viewed as the size of the sun is simply the size of the flame and not the rock underneath. A 10 million degree flame does have an extreme vacuum, because the rise in temperature from the fuel source stability to 10 million degrees is very rapid, a fact. The heat from the flame, even though it has risen above the surface of the fuel, affects the fuel source, the sun rock, and it heats its outer surface, causing it to expand on top faster than the material underneath, thereby cracking the rock. Then it is vacuumed up by the fire, where the flame will disintegrate all atomic bonds, dividing the elements involved in the subsets of atomic structure, a fact. The atomic bond is what is on fire, and it is very similar to the molecular bonds of chemicals we know as fire on this earth, except for the energy release, a fact. The observed sun tornado are appearances in that fire formed by particularly hard spots on the rock called our sun. Beneath the heat, different elements refuse to release their elemental bonds, creating a different rate of fire. Simple reality. As a consequence, the heat and flame surround this hard spot, opening space and creating turbulence in the fire. That massively increases vacuum and heat, causing even the most stubborn elements to release. Similar to the Earth, in some respects, this sun rock is also composed of different elements as a part of its fundamental structure. The flame spurts seen on the sun exist as the other side of this phenomenon. A burst of flame means elements that have been vacuumed up at a higher rate or higher quantity that then become on fire. That is normal for the system produced, therefore more fire exits here, for an instant, being released as in excess energy escapes. Simple reality, more fire needs more space. There is then by the math, a large volume of empty space between the rock, that is the sun, and its flame. as thermodynamics proved, followed by an intense vacuum applied by that fire in the space from the expansion of fire, the heat that makes more room. Thermodynamics are preventing the heat from going down to the rock. Thereby, the sun rock itself remains relatively cool, just like the space underneath your fire here on Earth, because the law of thermodynamics rules the sun too. When the fire gets closer to the rock, that means the fire is cool. This decrease in distance then makes the rock grow hotter, and that releases more fuel to grow the fire, expanding the area between the fire and the rock. By vacuuming up more fuel at a close distance, when the fire gets further away from the rock, it cools. That fire then does grow in size by distance equally because this is a sphere. The fire pushes energy outward, thereby not greatly heating the rock because distance prevents it. When cooling, the fire returns to the fuel source because heat is the source of expansion, not the fire. Either way, the outer appearance of the sun does remain similar in size and heat output because of this interchange in its overall size of fire involved. 9. It is the fire itself that sustains solar gravity. Understanding begins as the energy release of what holds the particles of atomic structure together requires that there is an equal but opposite reality of energy sustained within an atomic bond in the creation of an element. That means when the bond is released or forced apart, there will be an action and a reaction that follows. On an atomic energy scale, this is proven by the heat released from the atomic bonds. As seen in atomic explosions, the energy is there. To achieve a stable element capable of sustaining itself in a balanced state, there must be an equivalent of the opposite energy in place to hold that relationship within a specific environment. Or described more simply, a great deal of heat, to achieve a balanced state, must then be influenced by an equal amount of cold. The oblong pattern of planetary orbits are likely influenced by cycles of fire close and fire far away created over time. For more information, go to www.trialoflife.info. That includes information on constitutional democracy. The link is Reality of Energy for greater understanding of solar gravity, atomic construction, strings, etc. The link for more general energy information is as shown.